Carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we're back, and we're all about 15 pounds heavier from a Christmas dinner yesterday. We've got a good friend, Sal, back. Good to see you, Sal.
Good to be here, Chris.
Jason, I'm going to come to you at the end and let you introduce yourself to our audience since we haven't had you on before. Below Jason, our in-house CIA operative, a.k.a. 007, Jeff M.D., my good friend Jeff Nicholas, 20-year Black Hawk pilot, and former Navy SEAL Bill Brown, and lobbying hard for Pete Hegseth, who will be part of tonight's discussion. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, hey guys, I am a retired SEAL. Jason Redmond did 21 years with the SEAL teams, both pre 9/11, post 9/11. I'm a huge veteran advocate. I'm on the board for Concussion Legacy Foundation, focused on TBI, CTE with our veterans. I work with a lot of veteran organizations. I am an author, speaker, and coach, and travel the country events on leadership and resilience.
That's awesome, Jason. Appreciate everything you've done. So tonight's topic, really, we're going to discuss some of the flashpoints, the areas of concern around the world right now, whether it be the Middle East, China, Taiwan, Ukraine, Russia, et cetera, and get everybody's input on each of those conflicts or potential conflicts, and then draw that to a conclusion with Jason and Bill's firsthand knowledge. And the rest of us will chime in as well as to why this is the right time for Pete Hegseth to be the leader of our DOD, Secretary of Defense. So I'm just going to pull up a quick map of some hot spots to get started that shows basically these, I would say myself, are probably the four most prominent flashpoints that we have going on right now. But let's jump in right away and talk China, Taiwan. So the Chinese, as y'all are probably aware, I'm sure everybody on this panel is aware of, has been conducting military drills super close proximity to Taiwan. And this gives you a kind of visual representation of how close they're operating to Taiwan. Whoa! And it's shows a combination of their Navy and their aircraft, how close they're coming to Taiwan. In other words, it's a provocation, if nothing else. And then here's another article that was recently done on China surrounds Taiwan in military drills with each provocation by Taiwan independent separatist forces. Our countermeasures will advance one step further until the complete reunification of the motherland is realized. So I'm going to play this quick video, 56 seconds, and I'm coming to you first, Jason.
此次行动打的是台独铺张气焰，射的是外部势力干涉。
Might be better just to have it on mute. So he's basically saying it's lawful, legitimate use of what they're doing. Grossly challenged the one China principle, blatantly touted two states fallacy, and attempted to seek Taiwan independence by force and relying on external forces. He's speaking with regards to the leader of Taiwan, pushing Taiwan compatriots towards confrontation. This is totally an act of playing with fire. Sometimes the translations are kind of funny and interesting. Taiwan is China's Taiwan. How to resolve the Taiwan question is a matter for the 1.4 billion Chinese people. The Chinese People's Liberation Army is defending China's national sovereignty and territorial integrity. With each provocation of Taiwan independence, all our countermeasures will advance further. So, Jason, give me your thoughts on China and Taiwan and how that fits into our future here as far as America is concerned.
I think China is probably the single biggest threat that the United States is facing. I think it's been a problem that's been growing for at least a decade. The Chinese have been playing the long game, and we've allowed it. I mean, over the last 4 years, I mean, we've really been in a position of weakness, and we have allowed information warfare, cyber warfare. China has infiltrated so much of our technology. They have stolen so many of our plans. I mean, if you look at the F-22 Raptor and you look at the Chinese version, it's almost identical. And, talking with people that I know, they're like, China stole the majority of the plans and almost duplicated it. And it's something that we just haven't addressed. We've tried to play around. We've tried to give lip service to it. But obviously, the Biden administration hasn't done anything. I think one of the biggest mistakes we made with China was the collapse of Afghanistan and giving up Bagram. We should have held that ground. We would have maintained a strong position right at China's back door by holding Bagram. We could have maintained a military presence. And we gave all that up, and we continue to allow them to penetrate into our technology, into our business, across our country. And obviously, they're doing what they want with Taiwan because there's no fear of us.
Yeah, well said, Jason. Bill, can you follow that up with your thoughts on China, Taiwan, and America?
Sure. I believe if China has the ability to do so, their preference to take control over Taiwan is more of a political means, similar to what they did with Hong Kong, where they kind of create some type of special administration to overtly or indiscreetly have real control. If that doesn't work, I think when I look at the drills that they're doing now, I look at patterns sometimes, the way I look at military history. And there's a similar type of pattern that I see that played out in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War, where Syria was doing a series of drills and exercises, and it would tense up the IDF forces, and then they would kind of fake them out, kind of feign them out, continue to do it. And then eventually it wasn't a drill, and they weren't ready for it. And I believe if China can't regain political control by other means and measures, that's absolutely the pattern it's likely to proceed with.
I appreciate that. That's awesome insight, Bill. Jeff, we've discussed China and Taiwan numerous times on SDN. Sorry, Jeff MD, then Jeff Nicholas. I'm going counterclockwise on the screen here. So Jeff MD, we've discussed China a number of times, and I know what your feelings are on them, but let's get it out there for the audience one more time.
Well, yeah, Taiwan is definitely a thorn in the side of China and has been since 48. But the issue is, could China take over Taiwan? Yeah, they should be able to, for Christ's sakes. But the problem is, if they try and they fail, whoever's in charge ain't going to be in charge anymore. Xi is in an extremely powerful situation inside his own government. But if he launches an attack on Taiwan and gets his ass handed to him, he's going down. And he knows that. So if he's going to do it, he's got to make 100% sure he'll be successful. So I think a lot of this is the posturing that going back to history, you look at Germany and the Sudetenland. Had Germany just invaded Czechoslovakia off the bat, it's questionable if they would have won, because the Czechs had good defenses in place. They had a large standing army. They were actually better equipped than the Nazis. But Germany basically browbeat land. And once they lost the Sudetenland, that's where all their defenses were. Then they were vulnerable, and it was just a matter of time.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So Jeff Nicholas, this kind of hits home for your company, Compliant Technologies. Taiwan, of course, being the source of almost all microprocessors in the world, and that's probably the one choke point in your supply chain for your gloves, right?
Well, yeah. Our some of our microprocessors are made overseas, but now luckily we our last generations we've made right here in Kentucky. But we still have to source the parts. We don't make the parts here in the States, so yeah, all this stuff is vitally important to us. Even though we put it all together here, we still have to order parts, and that's one of our goals, is to bring manufacturing back. But I'd like to tie in on what Jason and Bill said, and I think this, and they both hit it on the head. However, the problem with the United States is we've had willing partners. Bill Clinton giving submarine secrets away, where they pop up a submarine in the middle of our Pacific fleet. They had no idea they were there with the propeller technology. Then you had Hillary Clinton and her servers. You had Dianne Feinstein, whose chauffeur was a Russian or a spy. You've got who's the congressman that was sleeping with
Eric
Swalwell, right? So we have given them the keys to the castle. No one's holding their feet to the fire because we have a corrupt DOJ. So we've been infiltrated, like I've said so many times in this show. And it's amazing to me that these people have to be tried for treason and they have to be hung from the highest tree, as far as I'm concerned, because they've caused the deaths of many people, and they have hurt our country and our national security. Period. End of story.
So just a quick sidebar, our audience knows this, but Jason and Bill, for your benefit, and you as well, Jeff, I've been kicked off of X 3 times this year. And all 3 times that I've been kicked off of X, I said that a particular person, one of the people that Jeff mentioned, for example, needs to be charged, tried, and convicted of treason and face the stiffest penalty. And all 3 times I got kicked off because I'm fomenting violence by suggesting that the law be applied in that manner. And
I'm always a guy in trouble. So yeah,
it's all good. But point being is the blue, pink-haired freaks can say that they wish the next, assassin is more accurate than the first 2, and that they splatter Donald Trump's brains all over the place, and nothing happens to them, of course. So, Sal, I'll wrap up on China, Taiwan with you.
Well, I think the China issue for the American citizenry is somewhat complex. You know, a panel of experts, most of you military and intelligence, et cetera, are on top of this. But for the average American, half of the things you buy are made in China. We are so tied to them in so many ways and so dependent on them. People don't realize how much of a threat this can be, just our dependence on them. If you look at our electric grid, for example, there's many components that we literally don't manufacture in the United States. We're dependent on a growing adversary to provide these critical components. So it's a very complex situation, and I think that alone is what makes this. It's an enemy, the sort of which we're not really used to dealing with. It's not so overt in its aggression, but it has all of these different tentacles already in us, and it's a scary situation.
Thanks, appreciate that. So I'm going to pivot next to the Ukraine-Russia conflict, the one that's kind of been top of mind for everybody during this almost entire administration. Got a quick message from Donald Trump that I'm going to quickly play it. I'm not going to play the whole 3 minutes and 30 seconds, just the beginning.
We have never been closer to World War III than we are today. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers between death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon. Nothing is more important than avoiding that nightmare. We will avoid it, but we need new leadership. Every day this proxy battle in Ukraine continues, we risk global war. We must be absolutely clear that our objective is to immediately have a total cessation of hostilities. All shooting has to stop.
So I'm going to move from that over to Zelensky here. And I believe this was after Trump was elected. Yeah, November 16th. And he laughs at the idea of Trump bringing Russia and Ukraine to the table to negotiate peace. Says Ukraine is independent and should be treated as such. And this response from Drew Hernandez is pretty good. All right, then pay for your own damn war. We're done flipping the bill.
Перше, сильна Україна. Вона повинна бути сильною для будь-якої дипломатії. Хочу ще раз це підкреслити.
Але США не лише потенційний посередник в переговорах, це країна, яка надає величезні обсяги допомоги Україні і яка може спонукати нас до того, щоб ми сіли за стіл переговорів. І цей меседж ви отримали від Дональда Трампа під час контактів, які у вас з ним були. Тобто він, як він каже? Він каже, я стану президентом і сідайте за стіл переговорів. Як це виглядає?
Я думаю, що він так не каже. Ми незалежна Україна.
All right. So, I mean, this guy's an asshole, right? So she's basically saying that we've been paying for this war and that he deserves a place at the table. And Zelensky's response is that, yeah, that's just not the case. They're a sovereign nation. They'll make their own decisions. Jason, not just your thoughts on the politics of that, but again, what is the potential for this conflict to drag us in even deeper if we don't take action as soon as Trump's in office?
I mean, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I talked to a lot of people, who were kind of trying to decide which way to go in this election, friends of mine that were struggling. I said, hey, look, the difference, you're choosing between strength and weakness. President Trump is strength. He is going to project strength. We need to get back to a strong military, strong technologies across the board. And that's a part of, in my opinion, the Ukraine-Russian conflict. Russia, in my opinion, really kind of showed their hand right off out of the bat. We saw outdated technology. We saw their inability to manage long-range logistics on the battlefield. And we're seeing Ukraine's actually holding their own somewhat well. Now, granted, we're funding a lot of that. We're helping a lot of that. But, I guarantee I'm out of the military now, but I would be willing to bet we are also learning a ton from what is happening and watching this. I think Putin's in a precarious position. I know there's a lot of unhappiness in Russia with this war and what's going on, no matter what propaganda they want to put out. So could it escalate to nuclear war? I mean, I don't know, possibly. It would. I think Putin recognized if he did that, he'd be gone in a second. And I think with Trump leaning on that with strength and reminding him, if you even make the mistake of launching anything on the nuclear side, you'll be gone and your government will be gone too.
Well said, Jason. So we haven't been on the podcast together before, and it's interesting that you hit on we're learning from this. So Mike Sterling's one of our regulars on SDN, 23-year master, EOD tech, counterterrorism expert, et cetera, and he's fond of saying that we're always fighting the last war, and that one of the reasons we've been so entrenched in this Ukraine war is because we're learning so much, especially as it pertains to drones. And then tying the drones back to China, just so you guys will get a laugh out of this, I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy one of these $12 drones off of Temu and see exactly what they do. So I ordered it a few weeks ago. Took a while to get here from China. I charged the batteries today. I took it out back. I turned it on, and without touching the controller further, it promptly came 3 feet straight up and drove right into the wall of my house and broke one of the limbs off of it. And that was the end of the Chinese drone. And I didn't even have a chance to shoot any footage with it because I didn't expect that it was going to commit suicide like that. But anyway, Bill, I'll get your input here on Russia, Ukraine. What happens when Trump's in office?
President Trump has America First policy. Right now, the U.S. Treasury Department reports we're $36.19 trillion in debt. U.S. Department of State website reports that we've given $61.4 billion to Ukraine. Look, that protection payoff money that Burisma gave Hunter Biden was a great investment for Ukraine. It's Europe. Europe should take up the lead and point in this endeavor. Germany's pretty close. They're very financially established. It's time for them to pick it up, and it's time for us to phase out.
Bill, quick question. I mean, just doing rough math in my head is each of these aid packages are arrived. It seems to me that we're a long ways north of 61 billion now, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this year.
Yeah, we're way over that.
I'm going what the U.S. Department of State website reports. I would agree with you guys. It's likely we're far superior than that.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning your research, Bill. I think that they're putting out some bullshit there myself. Jeff, MD.
Yeah, we gave him $100 billion at one time. So that was a year and a half ago or whatever it was. So yeah.
Probably some unique accounting on their part to make
it may have been just this
billion.
Year or this, maybe this fiscal year since October.
Right. Carry on from there, Jeff, MD.
Well, yeah, I Ukraine's a quagmire and it needs to be ended. Hell with Putin's ego and Zelensky's ego. We've had about a million casualties in this thing. The Russians have lost 600,000 men killed and wounded. And whether you like Russians or hate Russians, I've met Russians I like, I've met Russians I've hated. The guy in the trench isn't the one making the decisions, but he's the one paying the price. And we need to stop the frickin' slaughter. And if the Russian people won't stop it and the Ukrainian people won't stop it, Trump needs to stop it. If by no other means than starving it of food, which in war is starving it of money. I think Putin is looking for a face-saving way to get out because it didn't go the way he thought it would. We all kind of figured that. They'll make advances here and they'll lose chunks there. But in the grand scheme of things, nobody benefits from this, and it needs to stop.
So quickly for Jason, Bill, and Jeff Nicholas. Jason, you mentioned supply line issues exposed with Russia's military. And I've read that there's been issues getting food to the front line on both the Ukrainian and the Russian side. All three of you have served in theaters of combat. I've been told numerous times by veterans, nobody feeds their troops as well as we do. Is that the case, Jason?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, and I'll tell you what, logistics is what wins wars. When you start pushing troops forward, your ability to replenish ammo, food, all these things, and that directly impacts morale. One of the things with special operations, we go way beyond the front line. So we're bringing in our food. But even then, we've had the ability. I know when I was in Afghanistan, we had one of our helicopters got shot down that was coming for our extract. And we got stuck for 3 days, but they were still able to bring supplies into us to take care of us. And I think that's one of the most robust things your first world countries have the ability to do. And I think the U.S. does it better than no one else.
That's phenomenal, Jason. Bill, I want to get your thoughts on that. I've read that, I don't know for special forces, so the number might be different, but for the regular infantry, I've read there's 10 support personnel per fighting guy on the front lines. Does that ratio sound about right to you? And does that apply to spec ops as well?
Absolutely. There's always more support personnel than the actual combatants. But one of the points that both of you and Jason tried to regarding leverage over Russia, and it's a big lesson we recently learned by Mossad and how they tapped into Hezbollah's supply chain. And it's one of the big concerns that we have with China, right? So absolutely, that's a huge point of interest that military minds should absolutely consider that give leverage in negotiations.
Yeah, I was just thinking the reason I asked that question, and Jeff Nicholas, I'm coming to you next, is because Pete Hegseth seems to be the only candidate in recent memory for me who's actually got that type of experience of boots on the ground in the conflict and knowing what our troops are facing firsthand, as opposed to, I mean, I'll pick on Mark Milley because he's the easiest one, right? So my understanding is that he went through some training, got a badge, and then sat in a tent many, many miles away from where the conflict actually was. So big difference between Mark Milley. I know it's different roles, but big difference between Mark Milley and Pete Hegseth. Jeff Nicholas, I mean, you were one of the guys bringing troops in and out, bringing materials in and out. How do other militaries compare to ours when it comes to resupply, like Jason mentioned?
I would say that we're second to none. At the end of the day, logistics wins wars. You look at the comparison of the Confederacy and the Union, look at the comparison of a Japanese soldier versus a U.S. American soldier. And it was down in Pensacola at the Navy Museum. There's a comparison. This is the standard issue for a Japanese soldier. You should have seen the stack of stuff that an American soldier had in World War II. Clothing, ammunition, food, wet weather gear, the whole 9 yards. We were vastly superior. I just have a comment, and I don't want to be too long-winded, but I'm not a big Russian fan. That was always the enemy when I first joined the military. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the fact is, if Russia was going to invade, they would not have done so in the way they did. And I've got several sources. The numbers are actually totally lopsided. That war was over. That conflict was over on day one. 600,000 Ukrainians, they're pulling kids out of the street, making them join the average Ukrainian soldier in the actual combat less than 4 hours. The basic understanding of a weapon. if Russia would have gone through, they would have gone through on day one because they're vastly outnumbered in gun. And that problem with our media is the fact is you get this convolution. You've really got to dig down into it. And I'm sure Jason and Bill and Jeff can even attest to this. I've been in operations where you end up seeing later on what was reported in the news, what you just got done doing. It was 180 degrees out, you know, not even close to the truth. And you just, you know, it's whatever, you know, it's whoever put out that information, disinformation. And sometimes we do use disinformation as a tool. So the idea here is, and one of the big linchpins was they kept saying, get the biolabs off our borders. If they would have taken the biolabs down, they never would have gone in. And that's going to be linking back when the news comes out. It's going to link back to this other thing that we dealt with back in 2020 that came here to our shores, and everybody's going to kind of like drop a jaw when they see all the different people that were involved with this thing and where it stemmed from and how it was synthesized and how it was pushed out. It's going to be incredible. So I think Russia's had the upper hand the whole time, and I think they've been very surgical. They could have taken the power grids out on the day one. I mean, they're not stupid. They're a very intelligent force. And I think they've just escalated over time in response to U.S. weapons. If you talk about resolve to not go ballistic, you're threatened. You're telling Putin not to use nuclear weapons, and yet they're sending U.S.-made ATACMS deep into Russian territory. That's a lot of restraint. We never would sit back and do that. And I know that there's something else going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to. And I'll just leave it at that. But this war was over day one.
I appreciate that, Jeff. I like the comparison you made with Ukrainian soldiers not being well trained and you being a pilot. So there are a number of reasons why we defeated the Japanese, obviously, in World War II. But one of them is after the initial wave of Japanese pilots were shot down or kamikazes, they didn't have the training regimens that we did for our guys, and our pilots were exceptionally more talented than them. Sal, I'm coming to you last on Russia, Ukraine. Jeff MD and I have discussed this before, and we both kind of feel like there's going to have to be some land concessions to Russia for parts of eastern Ukraine that have always been part of Russia. They've never not been part of Russia. And I kind of agree with Jeff Nicholas. I think if those pieces are repatriated with Russia, Putin will probably back off from there. He just wants the Russian stuff back, is my opinion. What do you think, Sal?
Yeah. Trump, hopefully being the deal maker he always is, can bring this thing to an end. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. I think I was muted there. Trump, being the deal maker he always is, will hopefully, bring this thing to a close. There will be concessions, I would imagine. It's a complicated situation. I believe a third of the people in Ukraine are ethnically Russian. People forget that. This entire situation is typical of this administration that's been in place for the past 4 years. Absolute mismanagement. Kevin McCarthy, who I'm not a fan of, it's quite a rhino, but he was on a particular show where he breaks down the whole political lead up to this invasion. And basically it was a complete sign of weakness. He's convinced that if Trump was in office at the time, Putin never would have gone into Ukraine because there was all kinds of mixed signals sent that we're not going to arm the Ukrainians, and just a complete lack of show of strength from the beginning. So here we are, like so many other issues, how this administration has absolutely done its best to destroy our country. In this regard, it's been through giving hundreds of billions of dollars at this point to Ukraine, and we have 1 million casualties to show for it.
Right on. Thanks, Sal. So we identified, I want to say 6 or 7 flashpoints, but I'm only going to cover 2 more because Bill has another appointment to get to. So the next one I'm going to lump Iran, Israel, and the Middle East kind of all in together. And I've got a really quick video to play here, and then I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, Jason. So Yemen,
movement has
let me get rid of the volume. Yemen's hypersonic missiles continue targeting Israel, use of Maori reports, blah, blah, blah. my understanding is that these aren't really hypersonic missiles, Jason. Is that the case? Somebody said to me, all they're doing is if they go to a certain height in the atmosphere, when they reach whatever they call it, terminal velocity or something on the way back in, that's how they get to the speed, but they're not really true hypersonics. Is that the case? Do you know by chance?
I actually, Chris, I'll be honest, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that we are, I don't want to compare apples to oranges here, because I don't know the technology of what the Houthis have. I do know that we are behind the power curve on our hypersonic capabilities, and I know that we have been working on increasing that. And once again, the Department of Defense should be focused on how are we increasing our lethality all across the board, from our cyber capabilities to our missile capabilities and everything. And I think that has not been the focus on the last 4 years. The last 4 years, we have allowed the military to get weaker and weaker. The Navy has reached what I believe the lowest state of readiness with all of our ships. I know that our technologies are not advancing the way they should be. And I think that presents the even bigger problem there. I mean, when we're comparing ourselves to give them a second tier, I would say a third tier force at best, obviously being supplied by the Iranians, our technology should be far superior. And I don't think on some side it is, but our own technology on the hypersonic side, as far as I'm aware, is not there.
Interesting choice of words, Jason. Last time Bill was on with several other people that are part of your circle, the one word that kept coming up over and over and over again was lethality. And I think that's been absent from the whole discussion around our military through this installed administration. Nobody talks about lethality. They talk about DEI, which clearly isn't going to win any conflicts. Bill, your thoughts on the Middle East in particular, like Iran, Israel, and all the other surrounding players?
Well, if you want to influence appropriate behavior, you have to have the ability to act. That's the only thing that's respected in that theater of operations. That's a nasty neighborhood. There's a lot of very aggressive things happening there, a lot of very aggressive competing ideologies. I think, to be sincere with you, one of the major issues, I think, in our society today, our advanced society, is the fact that the articulate and educated people are kind of shunned from really calling out this jihadist type of ideology that's attached to Islam. And until we can appropriately address the root cause, and that is the root cause, and the continued patterns, the continued repeated patterns, you're going to have the same type of occurrences. That's number one. To defeat, we got to pull the root first. That's one. The second thing is, look, without it's a large energy resource there. It has a lot of American interest at stake. So we have to, unfortunately, for our own economy, we have to be involved. America First policy is what I promote. I don't want to be the world's police if we don't have to, but there's certain American interests that we have to be involved. And unfortunately, in that very dangerous and increasingly dangerous area of the world, with technology now, and the fact that our global community is extremely connected, very, very concerned, because not all actors, in my opinion, in that theater are rational actors. Right now, I think the logical and mature way is to realize the ability to act is the only thing that's going to deter and influence appropriate behavior. So that's really where we're at. Anything else is foolishness. Any type of actions in that theater That's why right now with Israel, you can see what happens when you're military efficient and your lethality is extreme. That's the only reason why they're still there. And so, unfortunately, that's one of the things that we have to realize too, because the threat level now, with so many actors, with the advance in technology that we have, is at an extreme level. And when I kind of compare statistics and the probabilities, it's great. Like we're at a seriously high threat environment now. And that's why it's extremely important for our military to get refocused on combat efficiency and lethality. And I can tell you one of the things I've been concerned about, to be effective now, we can't lower the standards in our military. But to be technologically advanced as we need to be to compete, we actually have to raise the standards. And in order to do that, we got to recruit the right type of talent and personnel. Mm-hmm. And their compass has been focused somewhere else. And it's time to refocus where it belongs, because we're going to need our military. There is too many irrational and extremely dangerous elements out there. And we're going to need our military. It's not if, it's yes, we are 100%. And unfortunately, in a number of likely situations. So we can't get correct leadership there fast enough.
Spoken like a true attorney. Well said, Bill. So, Jeff MD, question for you.
Sure.
It seems to me there's some outliers, but it seems to me over history, anytime that we've flexed on countries in the Middle East, that they've folded pretty quickly. I mean, the one that comes to mind most readily is because I grew up during it, was the Iran hostage crisis, and Reagan basically saying, "Give us our boys back. I'm going to turn you into a parking lot," and boom, solved just like that. I don't think Anthony Blinken and Lloyd Austin have the ability to flex on the world stage at all. I think Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth do, but you've been knee deep in this sort of stuff for years. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, what scared the hell out of the Iranians in 1980, which was after the election but before Reagan took office, is when he was asked how is he going to handle the negotiations with the Iranians over the hostages. His response was, "I don't negotiate with barbarians." Scared the crap out of them. They released the hostages about 15 minutes after he took the oath of office. You have to be willing to back up your threats with action, and we haven't done that. You know, Obama would do I'm drawing a line in the sand, and then they'd cross it. Okay, I'm drawing another line in the sand. They'd cross it. You lose credibility, and you need someone who doesn't want to use force, but is very willing to use force if necessary. And
so are you suggesting the SOP of saying don't do it doesn't work?
Yeah, just like it does with kids and dogs. Don't shit on the carpet. But what we need to get back to is our military's main mission is to kill people and break things. And anything we spend money on that doesn't do that, I'm not counting, in making sure that they know their families are taken care of, things like that. But I mean, things that do not further that mission are a waste of our taxpayer dollars. We shouldn't be doing DEI and all this. And they're like, oh, we need to broaden our recruiting base. Well, if that includes people who want $250,000 gender training, no, we don't need them. We need to get back to what the military is designed to do: defend the nation by killing people and breaking things when called upon.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, and I just want to interject there because I wanted to bring this up at the beginning. One of the biggest things, this region has been so destabilized, and there's been so many proxy wars that have been fought, especially by Iran being the biggest culprit there. And I will tell you, Trump, the greatest victory, in my opinion, of his entire presidency was schwacking Soleimani. Right. Because I will tell you what, that guy killed more Americans on my deployment. Jason Lewis, teammate SEAL, 3 of our other guys, wounded guys. We saw it on a regular basis. They were Iranian EFPs. It was Iranian Quds forces that were on the ground conducting operations. We need to get back to that. The Israelis understand that. The Israelis said, we're not going to screw around anymore. We're going to start taking out the top of your leadership. Nothing is off limits anymore. And Trump sent that message, and that is the message that needs to be continued to send across the Middle East is, hey, you want to play this game? We're going to take out your leadership. Iran, we're looking at you too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's 100%. Awesome. So Jeff Nicholas up next here. So this map shows a bunch of flashpoints in the Middle East. You served in the Middle East, Mogadishu. Give me your thoughts on just how volatile this is, and can we get out of this? Can we solve this mess in the Middle East without losing American lives, or are we going to have to, get in the mired down in the mud with these guys?
Well, I'm going to go back to my original statements earlier tonight, and that is we have people within our government that helped set up ISIS. We had people in our government help facilitate this. If you look at what happened prior to Trump taking office, Turkey was actually smuggling the oil out of Syria and places like that with black market operations. That whole area has been a mess because of corruption and all the kinds of stuff. And I don't have enough time to really dig into this. The answer is a lot of this can be quelled, I believe. And as far as our strength, a lot of people may be looking at these hypersonic missiles as a strategic asset. If we ever develop them again, I think we would be looking at more of a tactical asset with them, because we have stuff that goes way beyond hypersonic missiles. If you look at the Rod of God technology that we have and other space-based weapons and lasers and everything else, and I'll just say this, guys, do you think that we had the scramjet engine and the SR-71 in the 60s, and the best we've come up with in 60 years is the F-35? You're sadly mistaken, because we've got stuff that will blow people out of the water, and a lot of times it's really good just to keep that close hold. So I'm not worried about our strength, but I will tell you this, if Lloyd, and there's something going on behind the scenes, if Lloyd Austin and Biden and Blinken and the other idiots in charge and the clowns in charge would have had their way, we'd have had boots on the ground in Ukraine. Something somehow stopped that. We would have been flying our own air superiority missions, regardless of NATO, regardless of anything else, because the influence of people like George Soros and whatever you want to call them, deep state, the military industrial complex, the blah, 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 whoever they are, would have had us knee deep in this thing because they want World War III. Something stopped it. I'm not sure what and how, but I will tell you that it's too stupid to be stupid. But this is what it leads to now, because we have technologies that, and these things, a lot of these things like the Rod of God technology are not, nuclear. So there's no fallout. And and a lot of these things that we have, they say that are hypothetical are actually in operation. So I didn't even realize that you could pull an article up on it. But the end of the day, we're going to need the adults in the room if we're going to unleash these technologies. I think we need to go back to basics, like the other guys have said. Our military is designed to kill. So what do we need? We need leadership that understands the mission. We need leadership that understands a deployment policy. We need a leadership that understands what is, at the end of the day, commander's intent. What's the end state, and how do we exit the mission where we save face and we accomplish it and it's got a lasting effect. So therefore, that's why we need adults in the room. And if they can say they've been there, done that, and got the t-shirt, it's only going to make them do their job easier, because they'll have insight into into the ins and outs, the complications, decisions that need to be made. And so I think we're really at that stage. If the United States is going to have a presence, and it's going to have a responsible, professional, and orderly presence, so we need to have the leaders that we're hoping that will come in the future to lead this force that's the mightiest force on the planet, and people just don't realize it. Yeah, we might have some guys in the trenches and a couple infantry guys that want to wear dresses, but they're few and far between, and we can easily get those guys pushed out.
I appreciate that, Jeff. So, Sal, before I come to you, I just want to quickly state that on 3 separate occasions, somebody at a very high level in our military, one of whom was mentioned by Jason actually before we went live here, has said to me, we absolutely have the rod of God technology deployed. So these are tungsten rods that are supposedly 20 yards long. And when you drop them from space towards a planet, they say that if you hit a planet with enough of them, you could actually cause the whole planet to disintegrate, not Earth in particular, but smaller planets, objects like the moon. And there's no nuclear, there's no accelerant, there's no nothing. It's strictly the force of gravity pulling the tungsten rods down and reaching such insane speeds that the damage is actually exponentially greater than any nuclear bomb has been. So, Sal, I hate to rush you, but I got to get Bill to his next podcast. Give me your Cliff Notes version on the Middle East, and then I'm going to go to Jason and Bill to specifically discuss Pete Hegseth as the SECDEF.
Yeah, we need to go back to a Theodore Roosevelt sort of doctrine, right?
Yeah.
Speak softly, carry a big stick. If you look at our military budget, it is as much as I believe the next 10 nations on earth put together. So the only reason we should not be at the top of the heap always is because of leadership. It is not because of the resources. It's not because of the men and women on the ground. It is poor leadership. We will fall from within, not from without, just like Abraham Lincoln said.
Well said, Sal. All right, Jason, I want to hear your thoughts on why it's really important that we get Pete Hegseth confirmed on January 14th. Oh, we lost Jason. Bill, go ahead while Jason gets reconnected. He seems to be having some technical difficulties.
Okay, a couple things. There is a problem in the Pentagon. There's a serious problem in the Pentagon. Number one, look at the withdrawal in 2011 from Iraq. A complete power vacuum. And we talked about what happened with ISIS. A complete horror show. Right now, let's talk about Afghanistan. That shameful withdrawal there. There needs to be an investigation, a huge congressional investigation. There was massive amounts of corruption. When you leave trillions of dollars of military equipment to our enemy, that has to be investigated. And who made those decisions? I want their bank accounts subpoenaed. I want their emails subpoenaed. I want their cell phones subpoenaed. There's corruption, massive amounts of corruption and treason in the Pentagon. You don't leave trillions of dollars of military equipment to our enemies and not know something's terribly wrong. Like something's wrong there that has to be investigated. That's corruption and treason on a massive scale. You look at what happened when they have a spy balloon that goes over sensitive areas in our military installations in our country. They bent over. They put us at risk. That was an overt flex by China. He's so corrupt, so much corruption, they let that fly and over the entire country. Right? That has to be investigated. Why the hell that wasn't shot down even before it got over our country's airspace? If there's no greater example of the failed leadership in the Pentagon than what happened in Afghanistan. That withdrawal and how they left trillions of dollars there. Now let's not even talk about all the Afghanistan people that put their lives on the line because they wanted a better life, and now they were hunted down and tortured and killed. Like that happened, right? The Pentagon has failed us. The leadership in the Pentagon has failed us. Now let's, at the highest level of our military now, they either did two things, well, three. They either overtly bent a knee for rank and kissed the woke ring, or two, they were silent about it. There's two things. They were either silent or they bent a knee. Here's the truth. When you stop focusing on what the military's primary objective is to keep us safe when we need it, and you avert to something else for rank, you put us all at risk. The military should be based on a merit system. And we want to talk about the failed budgets. We want to talk about this year alone, $824 million budget unaccounted for, where they can't account for military assets. There's so much corruption involved with the Pentagon. It's unbelievable. Like now here's the thing. I talk about leadership, right? And leadership takes a couple things. It takes intelligence, it takes courage, and it takes vision. And sometimes a good leader is going to tell you the hard things, and you're going to have the courage to do it. That's what Pete did. Our military got so corrupted because, number one, they lost focus on what was important. And number two, there's real corruption there. When there's that much military equipment that's unaccounted for, that goes to the enemy's hands, like there's massive corruption. There's got to be serious congressional investigations. Pete Hegseth was the first person to call the leadership out. He was the loudest voice that say, hey, something is wrong. Houston, we got a problem. We got a problem in the Pentagon. We got a real problem. When you don't have the courage to say, hey, shoot down this spy balloon, send a message right away, like it's time to go. When you can't account for millions of dollars in your budget, like something's got to go. That's why we need Pete Hegseth, because he had the courage to stand up. He had the courage to stand up. And here's the other thing. A lot of these guys up there, they've never been in the trenches. Pete's been there, and he's been on the other side of it where he's advocating for veterans. So he's been downrange, and he's been on the other side where he's trying to help men and women come through their transition process and be successful. He's not in the pocket. That's what happened. That's why a lot of the leadership in the Pentagon and the military, the high leadership, have to go because they were silent. They were silent when, it got so bad. It reminds me when I was in fourth grade and I had a substitute teacher and the class just went chaotic. And when a teacher came back, I was like, thank God the teacher's back. We need our military to get back. And that's what Pete's going to do for us. And so I'm organizing a march with Jason and a couple other SEALs. And because Washington's a dirty place. And there's a lot of things going on that we don't even see presser tactics for these different senators. I want the message to be clear to the senators in the entire country. For too long, too many good men and women like us who served our country. Think about police, how they treated them, what they defund and try to, paint them all as racist. Look, for too long, too many good men and women have been silent. So we're going to go to D.C. to have a visual symbol of where the warfighter class in this country stands. And because we stand with Pete Hegseth, because we need our military to get focused as fast as possible. Because here's the truth. The threat level that we have now is it's off the charts. Statistically speaking, there's just so many, you know how it is when you're coming into a room, it's all about angles. There's too many angles now. And we need adults in the room to address as many angles as we can. And when you're off there focused about some other stuff that does not matter in the combat theater, you're making a mistake that's going to cost American lives. I don't want another 9/11. I don't want something worse. So that's what we need. That's why we're coming to D.C. We're going to be there January 14th. We're going to start at the Vietnam War Memorial at 9 a.m. We're going to hold the moral high ground. We're going to follow Martin Luther King Jr.'s example. We served our country with honor. We're going to advocate and participate in the First Amendment to free assembly and free speech with honor. We're going to hold American flags. SEALs only march with American flags. I invite everybody to come, but don't be coming with anything but American flag. We want everybody to know who we are. there will be nobody with us that's wearing a mask. We're proud of who we are and where we stand. All right. So don't come to our march with non-American flag or wearing some mask, because that's not what we're about. We're going to hold the moral high ground. We're not going to let anybody discredit our message, because we're going to be the good men and women, law-abiding citizens that we are. Look, our country, the global threat environment now is off the charts. We need Pete to deep six poor military leadership ASAP and get men and women in there who are committed to protecting our country, who are committed to combat efficiency and lethality, to a merit-based approach. That can't happen fast enough.
So before you leave, Bill, 3 quick points, and then Jason, I'll come to you next to get your input on Pete Hegseth. Number one, was that I the only person who saw Bill slicing the pie when he was doing this, or is that just me? I mean, that was the first thing that went through my mind. Number two, if you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch and download the brief for this evening's episode, there's some extended verbiage in there, a lot of which came from Bill with regards to Pete Hegseth and why he's the right man for the job. And then we mentioned earlier, and I forgot to show a picture. So there's Bill with Pete Hegseth at the New York City SEAL Swim. Do you want to give a quick plug for that before you jet, Bill?
The New York City SEAL Swim is a great event that raises money for the Navy SEAL Foundation. Jason Redman's been a big leader of that event for me. We sent for years, for 5 years in a row, we sent a positive patriotic message of unity for the entire nation to see when legacy media was painting us out and putting all these bad stories out there about our community. When you have SEALs coming from all across the country to swim across one of the dirtiest and dangerous rivers in the nation to send a positive message and to help other veterans, that really is represents the true character that most of us are about. And with Pete's help, we've raised actually millions of dollars for SEALs, Gold Stars, and their families. So I'm very honored. And to be honest with you, to support Pete, it is personal, because somebody who reached out to help our community like that, and now he's in a fight, well, damn right I'm going to be fighting with him.
That's awesome, Bill. I really appreciate your time, and look forward to having you on the next time.
Love you guys, man.
Likewise. Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Jason, there's one thing I keep hearing Pete Hegseth mention, and it's funny again that you would use the word lethality. Not funny, probably encouraging, positive would be the right word. But there's 3 things I have heard him say over and over again: lethality, war fighting, and accountability. Those are his 3 focal points. And none of that has been present other than war fighting ability of the guys on the front line during this 4-year gong show that we've had. But I'd like you to speak towards why you feel Pete Hegseth should be the SECDEF.
Yeah, number one, I mean, there's a big, misinformation campaign that's going on that wants to smear Pete. And I mean, it's a common tactic that's used today in this world of information warfare and propaganda. We utilize the media and social media to slur someone because there's a large group of people who don't want Pete, mainly because he is not part of the traditional path. Neither was Trump. You look at what Trump did. Trump was not a standard politician. Neither is Pete, neither is Tulsi Gabbard, neither is some of these other individuals. First and foremost, I worked with Pete on Concerned Veterans for America. I spent almost 2 years with Pete traveling the country, speaking from stages on key issues for our veterans, on the power of our military as a deterrent, on the use of the military within foreign policy and things like this. I never saw any of the things that people are accusing him of. And I stayed at the same hotels. I went to the restaurants, and I was there with Pete. I saw a passionate leader who believed in the mission of Concerned Veterans for America. More importantly, a passionate leader who believed in our country and the power of our military and what it holds. That is what I saw. Coming full circle, why I believe Pete is the right person for this job, beyond just I believe in him as a friend and leader. But Pete is a reset, and that is exactly what we need. Our military needs a reset. Our intelligence apparatus needs a reset. There are people that don't like that because you have individuals who grew up in the military. The generals who are stepping, typically the retired generals who step into the position of Secretary of Defense, have grown up within the military apparatus, which means they grew up within the military war machine apparatus too. They are politically connected. You are appointed by Congress as a flag officer. That means you are now having to deal in the political swamp. You are dealing in the business swamp with the military industrial complex. Pete is not. Tulsi Gabbard is not. Some of these other individuals that they are bringing are not. They don't bring in the biases. They don't bring in the relationships. They understand what it is to have boots on the ground, to fight wars against hard, nebulous, ambiguous enemies. And they also understand the warfare of the 21st century as it gets more difficult with information warfare, cyber war, AI. They're smart enough to reach out to the people they need to know, but most importantly, they're not going to be beholden to the relationships because they didn't grow up in the system. They are reset. That is what we need.
Amen.
Very well said. Yeah, amen indeed. Very well said, Jason. I really appreciate your time and your input tonight, and look forward to speaking to you the next time. Maybe next time you can hang out with us a little bit for some of the humorous stuff that we follow up on at the end of our podcast.
Yeah, man, I love that. I appreciate the time tonight. Yeah, anybody listening, man, reach out to your congressmen and senators before the hearings happen after the new year. I got that message coming out on my social tomorrow. We need to inundate them that they are the right people for these jobs, Pete specifically. Jeff, good meeting you. I don't know if we crossed paths in the past, but Jeff and Sal, Chris, thanks for having me on, man.
Likewise, really appreciate your time, Jason. Thank you.
Yep, thank you guys.
Brother.
So, Jeff Nicholas, I'll go to you next, and we'll wrap up our conversation for Chapter 1 on Pete Hegseth. Your thoughts on Hegseth as a SECDEF?
Listen, at the end of the day, if you look at the job description of the Secretary of Defense, it's about the overall mindset. It's not about all the technicalities. It's management, it's logistics, it's future planning, all that. And why not have a reset? We're coming in with Trump 2.0. We need to shake up, like Jason was saying, and you've got to have a competent individual that I think that kind of knows. And I think the fact that he was in the media and he understands the political side and the backstory side, and he understands the personalities. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily your so-called pedigree. It's can you get the job done? And I think he's a guy that would be able to do that. He's sure as heck worth the chance. Give the guy a break. It's just like, and unlike the media, never gave Trump a chance. It was like enemy from day one. Mm-hmm. Tulsi Gabbard is enemy from day one, and this mindset we're going to have to deal with this mindset from this mockingbird media, and the vitriol. These people are not friendly to this nation, and I've seen a lot of comments in the different comments tonight. If you don't like this nation, pack your bags. Somebody will take you. Go to North Korea and see what life is like there. And then let us know. Oh yeah, your letters will never make it out to let us know how bad it is.
I support Jeff Nicholas. I second the motion. Sal, your thoughts on Pete Hegseth?
I want people who are going to break apart this system and rebuild it. And I think the mandate that the American people gave Trump speaks to that. Most people in this country, that's what we want. The deep state, or whatever we want to call this apparatus, is so far afield, and I don't even like to say it needs to be reined in. It needs to be completely dismantled and rebuilt. And I know that's wishful thinking, but that's what we want. And I think he's the guy to do it. I like Tulsi Gabbard. I think somebody who was so fraudulently and, such despicable thing, how she was put on that particular, terror list. I mean, outrageous. So who better to put in charge of our intelligence? I think it's great. Kash Patel, he seems good. I don't know as much about him as the others, but so far, Trump 2.0, the choices are much more solid. These people are patriots. who love this country, certainly a lot more than the other side of the aisle and all of these people who are so embedded in the deep state. So these are the kind of people we need.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate that. I don't know if you know this, but we were one of the first ones to break the story on Tulsi Gabbard being put onto the Quiet Skies list. Sonia Labasco was a former sergeant in the Daytona Beach PD before she ended up at the U.S. Marshal's office, and she shields whistleblowers frequently. And the two whistleblowers that broke all the information on Tulsi went to Sonia, and then Sonia brought it to the public. It was pretty awesome. Jeff MD, Pete Hegseth.
I like it. I like him a lot because he's not so high up that he's part of the swamp, and he's not, but he's a very sharp guy. He's been in college, he's a lawyer, and he's been shot at. Most of the people in charge in the Pentagon have never heard a bullet whiz by their head before. They don't know what real combat is really like. I know more about real combat, and I was never in the military. I worked with them in Afghanistan, but I've had, a 16-year-old kid point a machine gun at my face. Okay, it's kind of a come to Jesus moment. But what I want him to attack in as well as the warfighting aspect of it is the procurement aspect. We waste so much money on, the military industrial complex. Eisenhower warned us against it. I'd love to see him rip that to shreds and start over. In World War II, the P concept to prototype in 7 months. We built the atomic bomb from frickin' scratch in 3 years. We had to invent elements that did not exist to make a weapon. We did it in 3 years. It takes us 20 years to get a missile that doesn't explode on the rail. I mean, we need to hold the defense contractors accountable. And what we need to do is say, you know what, you don't get a damn penny until the thing passed acceptance tests. None of this, oh yeah, we overran by $1 billion. Okay, let me write you a check. Oh wait, yeah, that cost about $500 million more than we thought. Okay, here, let me write you a check. No, the reason we got the F-22 and it flew off against the F-21, this was back in the 80s. We said we had Northrop, we had Lockheed, build a fourth generation fighter, and we're gonna have a fly off, and whoever wins the fly off wins the contract. And whoever doesn't win, they got their development costs covered, and that was it. And that's what you need. You need hardcore competition for stuff. But we're getting to the point we only have a handful of defense contractors, and they own everything. You want a missile, you better go to Raytheon. You want a air-to-air refueler, you got to go to Boeing. There is no competition. There is no Lockheed or McDonnell Douglas anymore. No Lockheed aircraft like that. And we need to get back to that.
Totally agree. That competition is what drives innovation.
Absolutely.
So merit, excellence, and intelligence trumps DEI every day.
Monopolies drive overhead.
Yeah.
That's all they do.
All right. So here's the deal. Chapter 1 went kind of long. I'm going to get rid of chapter 2 tonight. We're going to go straight to chapter 3, which is some zany headlines and funny memes and stuff so we can leave a smile on people's faces. But before we do that, we got a quick message from one of our sponsors at Sawyer Products.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
All right. Can't say enough good things when it comes to Sawyer Products. They're a very altruistic company. They've been knee deep in helping people in West North Carolina, East Tennessee from Hurricane Helene. They help people around the world through their Sawyer Foundation, and their products are second to none. So let's try something a little bit different tonight because I've got quite a bit of stuff plugged in for chapter 3, the funny humor stuff. Some of it's not funny humor, some of it's zany. But as I bring each one up, I'll assign one to Jeff Nicholas, second one to Sal, third one to Jeff MD. You guys can comment or pass. The choice is yours. But I specifically queued one up just for Jeff Nicholas because I know he's going to have some interesting comments on this.
Don't just stand there, let's get to it. Strike the pose, there's nothing 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 to it. Strike the pose, 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 there's nothing to it.
Did you catch the caption there, Jeff? When they call and say jets are inbound and I need to land them.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say right here. What does my shirt say? That is the Navy. So
it's not gay if you're underway.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's some guys below decks that are going like, "Oh, I can't wait till they land the jets." I don't know. So it's pretty sad commentary on that would be, it's a far cry from Top Gun.
I was going to say Top Gun. Yeah.
They're coming in and that's something like, that's really kind of amazing. And the guys are, doing their thing on deck and it's actually doing something. And this clown here is, what is he? He's the metrosexual Navy guy. Is that a recruitment video?
He's a transgender freak, actually. He's been putting stuff out like that since Biden got in office. But anyway, I knew you'd have some colorful comments. Yeah, it's Navy.
Oh, and they let it go. Yeah, awesome. No repercussions there, right? Using a Navy ship to put videos out, and they let it go. That dude would be in the brig if I was his commander.
100%. So Sal, yours is a little bit more serious here. Breaking: President Trump to launch Operation Golden State. The FBI under Kash Patel will investigate every single lawmaker in the state of California, or California Senate, for ties to cartels and corruption. It is expected that half the state senators in California will be arrested, and Gavin too. It kind of sounds like a little bit of wishful thinking when you put those types of numbers on it. It started strong, but then when they said 50%, I'm kind of, What are your thoughts?
I mean, it would be great if it happens. And if 50% of them are dirty, I would not be surprised at all. You guys may remember years ago, his name escapes me, but he was, I want to say, a senator out of California, and he was one of the loudest mouths about banning every kind of gun, and it turns out he was running guns. I don't know if you all remember that. And sure enough, the FBI, caught him red-handed and put him away. So that's always how it is with these despicable far leftists. And California is full of them. It's laws for thee, not for me, and I would love to see a lot of those guys go down.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm with you 100% on that. All right, Jeff MD, just because you have a fairly large fan club in England, you guys may not know this, but Jeff gets frequent comments from our viewers in England. They absolutely love him. I think it's got something to do with the whole 007 thing, but it could be wrong. So check this one out. Muslim girl in the UK: do not celebrate Christmas. Do not decorate or put up a tree. Do not exchange gifts or do anything related to Christmas. Christmas is not part of British culture. If you know anyone who's going to take part in Christmas, tell them to stop.
It's that time of the year where Christmas is fast approaching, and that means we're going to be seeing Muslims taking part, putting up Christmas trees, exchanging gifts, putting up decorations. And before any Muslim comes to me in the comments and tells me it's part of British culture, that it's okay, please go and do your research. Honestly, if the revets can do it, and some of them don't even take part in exchanging gifts, they don't put up any decorations, they don't do anything. And imagine how challenging it must be for some of them. So if they can do it, honestly, you have no excuses. And if you're that Muslim that was going to put up a tree this year, please take this as your sign. or if you know someone who's going to take part, show them this video, let them take it as a sign. You do not have to exchange gifts. You don't have to put up a Christmas tree. You don't have to put up any decorations. You don't have to do any of it. Honestly, take it as a day off. You've got a day off of work and just go about your day like it's normal.
Well,
So
let me
did
say,
you know Christmas?
If there's anything that's not British culture, it's her. Go back to wherever the hell you're from. Now, if you choose not to celebrate Christmas, that's your gig. That's okay.
100%.
A lot of Jews don't. I don't celebrate Hanukkah. I don't celebrate Kwanzaa. I don't fault anybody who does. But if you're a Muslim who wants to celebrate Christmas, guess what? Jesus was a prophet to the Muslims too. Why can't you celebrate his birth?
I'd be curious to know where she's from, because all of the Middle Eastern countries I've been in are pretty big on Christmas. I mean, there's like Christmas trees in every mall, and it's like a big deal. I'm sure it's mainly commercially driven, just like it is here. But
Right.
what is she talking about?
Well, how could she say it's not part of culture? Has anybody ever heard of the guy named Charles Dickens?
Right.
And how their whole culture was stemmed around that. He was famous in his early 20s. Unbelievable.
More, sir.
Yeah.
All right. So honestly, Jeff Nicholas, I did not do this I didn't switch the tabs around my web browser for stories. And
I got
everything.
another tranny thing.
As a matter of fact, you do.
Oh my goodness. Right.
So this was originally posted by John Rocker. God bless John Rocker. So here we go.
And what is this supposed to be? Where is this located?
Oh boy. So the American culture 2024, 2025 almost.
He's a white dude wearing red and blue, was it? So he's patriotic. Is that what you mean?
I don't know, but what I do know is when we're done with this episode, I'm going to rewind at this spot and take a screenshot of the expression on your face.
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine what my face looked like. That's just bizarre. How could you? I mean, I like the fact that I'm a man, and I like the fact that women are women. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't know what happened to you in your youth to make you want to do that and need that kind of attention. Is an absolute. I feel sorry for the guy.
Listen, it's 2024. We do need to clarify one thing. I like women too, but not chicks with dicks. So let's just be clear on that.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's not even, that's not even, possible, really.
You like Thai lady boys?
Maybe.
Right. Yeah. All right. So, Sal, it's your turn to get in on the insanity.
So I've made this point many times when we have these discussions. The insanity is by design. It's a push to corrupt our understanding of reality, right? It is, if you can break from reality to the point where everything is gray, there's no more black and white, well, then a population is much easier to manipulate. That's all it is. We've had this discussion where this is an anomaly that actually comes up every time a society is in its death throes. For example, gay is not a sign of that. If you look at the Roman Empire, I mean, half those guys were like bisexual, like that all throughout history. That's been kind of a thing that's always there, no matter how large or small the population. But when you start blurring the lines between the sexes, that's always a sign of a social disease. It's a societal disease. So that's what's happening. And again, all through history, there's always people who are legitimately confused, feel like they're in the wrong body or whatever, but not to the point where the numbers that we now see, that is this new cry for attention or whatever it may be. There's been other things similar. If you look in the 90s, a big deal was the multiple personalities. Do you guys remember that? There was like a whole spate of, all of a sudden everybody has multiple personalities. Seems to me that was always very convenient if you were into criminality. You know, you say, hey, that was the other guy who lives inside of me who did that, you know? So there's been like, it's almost like this moral panic that happens, and all of these people who are confused in any way jump on the bandwagon. That's what we're seeing.
So all I heard there, Jeff MD, was Sal punting to you on this one. So speaking of manipulation.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, now was the baby Drake?
I don't know who the baby was because I'm not up to speed on all this,
Well,
debauchery.
in Democrat world, okay, one, they probably are heroes to them, and men can have babies, so what the hell? It's just,
Can I just add a comment on there?
Of course.
With Sal, just taking it to the next level, when you take God out of society, when you start separating yourselves, and Billy Graham said it best. I think he said we've done a good job of educating ourselves to hell. You don't think you need moral law, God's law, natural law, and you can create your own law based upon your own emotion and whatever you think. You're playing on a slippery slope, and that's why half the time when I'm talking about infiltration from within, but it's also infiltration with all this propaganda and all these other things to desensitize us. It's infiltrated our hearts. It's infiltrated our minds, and it's dulled us down, and it's made us weaker. I've always said that the enemy doesn't want you to realize that one of the positions of strength that a man could be in is on his knees, asking God for guidance, direction, and wisdom, because God raises men up, he puts them down, and without him you can't survive. He gives us the very breath that we have, and we take that for granted. And it's just a sad commentary. This is what happens to a people that abandon the Lord. And so what are we going to expect,
So rather good timing for this one to come up in the stuff tonight in order here. So if you do nothing when evil happens, what kind of a person does that make you? So I'm not sure if you caught all this stuff, the illegal invader who set the girl on fire on the subway, and there's 3 law enforcement officers walking by her very nonchalantly, not doing anything. I've heard a couple different theories. A couple paramedics have said to me that after a short period of time of her being on fire, her lungs probably stopped functioning and she died shortly thereafter, and that your tendons get melted to your bones and that type of emoliation. And that's why she was standing there not moving, because she was already dead. But the way the cops walk by, the one in particular, he's reading his phone, walks by, looks over his shoulder, and just keeps on walking. It was pretty crazy that no effort to do anything was done. I mean, how does that square, Jeff, with what's supposed to be a Christian nation, pardon me? That doesn't seem in simpatico to me.
You're asking me or Jeff MD?
Yeah, Jeff Nicholas, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, again, it just shows you where we're at. I mean, it might not, you don't even see that. So it might have been one of those subconscious things where the guy didn't register until maybe he got past her by 25 feet. Because how often do you see that? But, Jesus said, I think it was in, I don't know if it was Luke 23 or something. He who is not with me is against me, and he does not gather with me scatters. And then it says, first of all, if you're not on his team, you're against him. And then it says, in 2 Peter 3:5, I believe, that the devil walks about like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. So if you're not on the side of the Lord, you're part of the enemy and you're an easy target. So you can be persuaded and moved and become very obtuse to what's going on. We have a very apathetic, uncaring society. Part of that is because of the fact that nobody wants to do anything, because law Well, I don't have to pull over when an emergency vehicle drives by. It's not in the law. You do it out of respect and hopefully to help them. If someone is being hurt or something like that, legally, you don't have to do a thing.
Including the cops. Including
the cops. They have, that's right.
The Supreme Court ruled on that.
And so what does that say to us? I think as men, as fellow citizens, as humans, you know, I really think in this whole thing, and this is going to stem back. I don't know, was a lady a black lady, a white lady, whatever. I haven't seen the video. My whole adult life has been surrounded with death and dying. I know that it was a Guatemalan. He was probably one of their guys they let out of their insane asylums. And
deported 5 times, Jeff, under Trump. Deported 5 times. Biden let him back in. Then Biden paid to fly him to New York City. He was getting all kinds of government assistance. And he got drunk, and he had some sort of an accelerant with him because he dumped an accelerant on her before he lit her on fire. And his defense when he sobered up was, I was drunk. I don't remember doing it.
Well, then we'll sedate you before we execute you. Sorry, you won't feel it. So, and you won't remember it. I don't know what else to say, but unless we have people in leadership standing up, willing to put an end to this and start putting a standard, and start developing a sense of caring. One of the things the left is really good at is just targeting and using things backwards and forwards. They talk about racism and things like that. I've always said that's not a state of anything. There's no such thing as racism. There's such thing as bigotry. There's such thing as prejudice. There's something as apathetic. There's only one human race. We're one human race. And so at the end of the day, you can be a lot of things. And I don't know what caused people not to do anything, but they should have helped that lady try to fire extinguisher or something, or throw their coat on her to try to extinguish the flames and see what the medics can do and just say, well, she was dead. Just let her go.
The code is a good idea. There are no fire extinguishers on New York City subways because there were multiple instances of idiots pulling them off the, out of containers and spraying people. Just, that they're the reason we can't have nice things. But we've been covering this in depth this week, and it's just absolute, just horrible situation of what's happened in New York on their subways. And she's just one really bad example of a whole bunch of bad examples. But let's try and pivot back to something a little more funny. This one's for you, Sal. Me trying to find something that isn't gay in 2024.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look how anything coming out of Hollywood is. It's just, it has to be in your face with everything. I mean, I've always hated how Hollywood has to push any kind of sexuality, let alone that. Why must this be in your face constantly? And everything they do is such a ploy, and it's so obvious. You'll see a lot of shows or movies where they go for a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1. So they'll make like a minority also, gay or trans or whatever. It's like, is this so obvious? You just have to check the box with this. I mean, I think that's such a slap in the face to the gay community, to any kind of minority. It's just ridiculous, but this is, again, it all comes back to the looking to normalize and corrupt society. And honestly, like I said, it's not even just that it's too much gay stuff. It's just the amount of sex and everything is just despicable, because we know that it's very detrimental for especially young people to see it. So that's why they push it.
We had a meme on sometime in the past week where basically it's the Dwayne Johnson meme, and he's asking this girl why she doesn't watch TV anymore. And she says, well, I'm not a gay, black, transgender, or whatever, and that's all that, implying that's all that it's on TV, and it's kind of the truth. So, and speaking of appropriate memes, this one's for you, Jeff MD. I swear to God, I did not plan for this to come up for you. You're on mute.
Well,
Jeff.
it's 100% true. Let's face it. everything the government touches turns to shit. It is the least efficient way to deliver a good or service of any kind. And whatever government program gets put forward has the exact opposite effect of the stated intent.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
99% of it needs to go away.
100%. So, Jeff Nicholas, next one's for you. There's no.
Please don't be a transgender little. It's going to be some guy, to go along with Sal. If you look at the the laws of thermodynamics, everything is in a state of decay and will continue that way. So evil can never decide one day to get nicer, right? So now you're going to have somebody marrying his dog on a TV show or something, and trying to have puppies or something. That's how sick it's going to get.
Yeah, so I don't know if I've got any more gay transgender stuff or not.
Well, don't give them to me.
Well, I was trying to find something to bring up just for you, but I don't see anything in the queue right away, so I'll go to this one instead. So you want to talk government corruption? Here you go. Doctor making $175K a year, member of Congress making $175K a year. That meme says a lot right there. I mean, it's very accurate.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand that. They make $175 a year, but they don't have to tell you the housing allowance. There's a housing allowance they get every month, and that covers the difference, which allows them,
I don't know. I'm looking at that thinking that's more like a stock allowance or, insider trading allowance or something.
Yeah.
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 So, Sal, this, not that you're conspiracy minded at all, but this is a good one. Not a witness was stirring because they all mysteriously committed suicide.
I mean, the Epstein thing is laughable. It's just laughable that, what happened. And it's just these elites have their tentacles in everything. This whole P. Diddy thing will be interesting as well, because the Hollywood elites and the politicians, man, they all run in the same circles, and elites have this thing about once they get that amount of power and influence, they think they can have anything they want. And so many of them turn to this diabolical desire for really, really horrible stuff. I mean, I know credible people who say that there are satanic cults that do just horrendous things with elites involved, and going as far as to say the whole satanic panic in the 80s was by design to try to discredit the whole thing, because what's the easiest way to hide these things is in plain sight, so how much those practices come into it, I don't know, but there definitely seems to be these cabals of elites, and I'm sure that couple is right in the mix.
Yeah, no question at all. So Jeff MD, if you're offended by Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the song Baby It's Cold Outside, the fact that Santa Claus is an old white dude, the phrase Merry Christmas, then America really isn't for you. Kind of ironic that would come up on you. Yeah.
Yeah, Lee.
It's not complicated.
I refuse to say Happy Holidays. If someone says, "Oh, Happy Holidays," I always reply with Merry Christmas. If they say Happy Hanukkah, I'll say Happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas back at you. But yeah, it's like, get over it. This is America. If you don't like it, the boats run both directions.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I can get behind that. So what would would you believe it, Jeff Nicholas? I actually found one that was queued up just for you.
Oh,
Guess my pronouns. So any guesses on pronouns here, Jeff Nicholas?
You know what? I'm not even gonna. I'm gonna say I don't know what happened to this dude. I'm looking at him and I'm trying to figure this out. And maybe he was picked on at lunch one too many times. I don't know, but
I'm putting my money on that's a chick taking testosterone.
The thing is, and I hate to be serious because I would love to make fun of this. This is what people in other countries see what an American male is. They must think we're the biggest joke that ever walked. I mean,
100%.
And the fact that these people are given a voice, yeah, I understand that it's a meme, but oh my goodness,
You're right on the money.
It's what a man. I hope people realize that this is a minority of what our population is, and not, if this is the majority, then we are done as a nation.
100%. So check this out. We're going to swing the pendulum all the way to the opposite side here. Every man needs two things to live a successful life. First, he needs a moral code of right and wrong. And secondly, he must have a backbone to keep him from being swayed by those with no moral code. My brother-in-law has 3 children. He's an amazing father, loves his children. And there is not a single picture of any of them in his living room, but there's at least 100 pictures or figurines of John Wayne. So if he doesn't represent the epitome of what this country used to be, I don't know what does. I mean, we've beat that horse to death, pardon the pun on that, but no need to really go in depth on that. But here's kind of funny. Remember that time you spent $1 billion on a rigged election and Trump still destroyed you? That was awesome. I'll give this one to you, Sal. I actually read something the past couple of days that they think the real number is 2.5 billion.
Yes. Yeah, I was just going to say that's what I've heard, and I wouldn't doubt it. And imagine still 40% of voters wanted to put this thing in charge of our national budget. Imagine.
Let her rip, Jeff Nicholas.
No, I can't believe that. She didn't earn 1 delegate, not even 1%.
I know. I have a hard time with that too.
That was the rigged amount to try to make it not look so bad. Because the Democratic Party, if we get rid of the machines, we go to voter ID, they're going to say, we don't know what happened when 90% of the people don't vote for one. That's the real
yeah. And when everything is an anecdote, at some point, when is it no longer an anecdote? Like, pretty much every Democrat I know hated her guts. So, you start to wonder where, she, even as hard as they might try to play with the numbers, she did worse with women than any Democrat candidate since, I forget.
And they're still trying to say that 65 million people voted for her, which is more than what some people won previous presidential elections on. There's no way in God's green earth she got 65 million votes.
It's just incompetence at a level that, it makes a mockery of the whole nation. It really does. It's just unbelievable. Hillary Clinton, as much of a monster as she is, at least there's competence, evil competence, but competence. This was every bit as leftist and socialist, but total incompetence. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Beyond a joke.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So next one to you, Jeff MD. From WikiLeaks, Obama ran pedophile ring out of White House. Julian Assange unveiled another bombshell Sunday evening, alleging that WikiLeaks now has hard proof that former President Barack Hussein Obama operated and participated in a pedophile ring based in the White House. A leaked email released today read, a young boy, the age of 5. He will make the perfect catamite for the president. He will arrive from Romania on Tuesday. I'm sure the president will be pleased. The leak is bound to start a massive investigation, Assange said. That is, if we can get the word out before the news is swallowed up by the Obama shadow government.
I'll have to see the evidence. This is something that only came out, I think, like the last day or two.
Correct.
And at this point, it's just words. I'd like to see some proof. And I
there
don't
were some pretty
just
good,
because you get these things and then they fizzle out. So, but
yeah,
this kind of evil coming out of Obama, I can believe it.
It's not unbelievable, that's for sure. Jeff Nicholas, what did you want to add to that?
No, there definitely were reports of young kids being brought in from Chicago and stuff like that during the time with these private parties and things like that. This is not the first time, and the other things I've heard, and then you had the other guy that talked about his liaisons several times with Obama, and he actually came with an attorney when it was City Hall, talked about the homosexual activity and the drug use and all that, and this was through an affidavit with an attorney, with judges present and everybody else. These people, people think it's just like the kids missing on the border. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. They cannot believe that children would be sacrificed in occult rituals. I said, are you kidding me?
Unreal.
Your emotions don't want to accept that, but that's not reality. And half
Correct.
the problems with these people in our nation is they're kind of like, when you start telling them, they start putting their ears up. Like, who was it? The Postmaster General didn't want to hear the facts. And so it doesn't fit with their so-called reality meters. So therefore they don't want to hear the truth.
So before you go any,
this is so, I think there's even some stuff about Roberts out there,
Before you go any further, Jeff, the next one up, which is yours, speaks to this. So I want to bring it up while you're talking. Would you blindfold yourself and eat whatever someone fed you? No. Then stop letting the media do it to you. So carry on. I just wanted to get this up there while you were speaking.
Mockingbird Media, is definitely a 3-letter operation that, they get the 4 a.m. talking points and they spew out the same. Have you ever seen the montage of the local news?
Yes. And they're all saying the same thing.
Words coming out all the time.
Yep.
You don't think that that's purposeful? Oh my
100%.
goodness. What else do you need to hear? People need to pull 100%. Their head out of their fourth point of contact. They need to start doing some research. And they need to start standing up for what is right and standing up for truth.
100%.
And, at the same time, I can sit here and be opinionated and make these comments, but I've got to reflect back and just reiterate that this is a spiritual war.
Yes.
This is all spiritual. One of the reasons God had Israel removed out of the land that that miraculously gave them was the fact that they were burning their children in the bellies of Molech and sacrifices and a brazen altar, and things that, in the book of Jeremiah said, you guys are doing things I'd never even thought about doing, not that he took them by surprise, but it's outright blatantly evil.
It is absolutely
take your own child and throw it in a burning brazen altar and watch it die, then what else are we capable of doing? And that's humanity, and humans have been humans. I've been all over the world, and no matter where you go, people are people. You have good people, bad people, evil people, happy people, sad people, the whole 9 yards.
Truth. All right.
Anyway, that's it. Sorry.
No worries, Jeff Nicholas. Next one for Sal couldn't be more fitting, from Firearms Policy Coalition. When you thought you had time to open the safe, remove the cable lock, load the gun, rack the slide, and then defend your home. Give us your quick thoughts on being unprepared like that, Sal.
Well, that it all goes with the mentality of it won't happen to me. So you might have individuals who are willing to finally arm themselves and keep it in the home. But if you do that kind of thing, then you have not come to the conclusion this can happen to you. And it is a willful denial, particularly with self-defense against human predation. There is a willful denial that probably a majority of people have. I wrote an article many years ago now on my blog. I think it was called Fire Extinguishers and Guns, Why the Dichotomy? And in that, I pulled the statistics, FBI statistics, CDC, etc. Long story short, you're 28 times more likely to be a victim of violence in your home than of house fire. 28 times. Now, granted, much of that, probably most of that, is domestic violence, right?
Sure.
But still, if you don't have fire extinguishers and fire alarms, then people universally agree that you're being negligent, right? So what is it about this willful denial about what can happen to you? Home invasions are at an all-time high. We're seeing home invasions happen with multiple armed felons breaking into houses with long guns. This, having your gun with a cable lock through it and the ammo separate and all that, those days are over. With the technology we have, sub $100, you can have a good hand safe so that your pistol is immediately ready to you and other authorized users in the house, yet inaccessible to children. So this whole mentality has to go.
100%. All right, Jeff MD. So let's talk about making Canada the 51st state. Look, kid, just become the 51st state and I'll stop calling you a faggot. I can actually see you're on mute, Jeff MD. I can hear Trump saying this in my
Well, actually, it needs to be more than one state. You need to have like 3 or 4 conservative states and a couple of liberal states.
Right.
You take the middle provinces, make them states. And then you take, Ottawa and Vancouver and you just make them U.S. protectorates who get a shadow senator or a shadow rep, but don't actually get a vote.
Are you referring to Vancouver?
Yes, Vancouver and the People's Republic of Ottawa.
If you look at Trudeau, he's looking at his hand going like, I don't know, I think I like being called a faggot.
Yeah, Canada has the same problem we do, urban versus rural. Canada would be solidly very conservative if they were not held hostage by, Montreal and Toronto and the other big enclaves.
I traveled extensively when I was working for Sun, and Montreal is one of my favorite cities. I'll tell you right now, it's the only city in North America where you are 100% guaranteed to get an English speaking cab driver every single time. I can't tell you how many times I flew into San Diego and every single one there was a Somali, which is ironic with Jeff Nicholas on tonight. But Toronto is the bigger problem than Montreal is, to be quite frank. And Quebec in general is a pretty, call it hardcore right-wing part of the Canadian country. But anyway, that's besides the point. But let's get political here for a second. Of course, it's got to land on Jeff Nicholas. St. Floyd of fentanyl. So there's some discussion that there are going to be some people going to Trump, Jeff, asking him to remove the statues of George Floyd now that all of the details surrounding his death have been released and that he died of a fentanyl overdose and was not suffocated. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm just kind of wondering what was going to be more when they talk about the fact that there was signs made up about his death that were published before his death. So that's going to be interesting to see what all comes out about some of the things that, that create false flags and the nation divided. Because if you think what that started, the billions of dollars of damage, a more divided nation. If you look at all the stuff surrounding him, there's just a lot of questions. I think the first thing Trump needs to do is pardon that officer. Yes. Based upon how Biden exited, he just commuted the sentence. A lot of people say they sent them free. If I'm mistaken, they didn't. If I'm not mistaken, they weren't let out of jail. They were just taken off of death row and now prisoners for life with no chance of parole. I think that's the way that went down.
You're correct. 37 out of 40 federal inmates on federal death row had their death sentence commuted, but they were not set free. But they're not going to face death.
There was some people putting that out.
Yeah,
it's all about, we still need to be truthful. Either way you look at it, it's not good.
The thing with George Floyd and Derek Chauvin is not only is it 100% the medical examiner's opinion that he died. He had 2 different types of fentanyl, by the way. There's 1,400 analogs of fentanyl. He had 2 different ones in them. But there was also video released somewhere around a year ago or so from the backside that had never been seen before, had not been released to the press or was not introduced in court, that showed Derek Chauvin had his knee on Floyd's shoulder blade.
Yeah, I saw that
near his neck.
I saw the video, and I've been saying the whole time, if you look at the other video, his knees is never on his neck.
Correct. 100%. So next one up for you, Sal. White liberals more likely to have a mental health condition. And I don't recall what the exact number was, so don't hold me to this, but I think it's directionally correct. But it was something like 50% of white liberal females are taking SSRIs. So these mood enhancing drugs. I mean, they're miserable. So here we are tonight looking at this crazy shit with, transgender, whatever in the military, and we can all laugh. I've made this point numerous times. Even Donald Trump can joke about, the assassination attempts. But on the other side, they're just pissed off at the world. They're angry. They never laugh, joke. You know what I mean? Like everything is doom and gloom with the other side.
Well, white liberal unmarried women are the most mentally unhealthy demographic in the country. That's established.
Yes.
And, you know, they grow up in an environment that tells them that they're a victim constantly. You're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. You're a victim of the patriarchy. You're a victim of this and that. And they are the harbingers of, you know, all of this insanity, this woke insanity. It's just ridiculous. Any females from any minority groups are nothing like this. Nothing like it. You know, you take women from Asia, women from the Middle East, black women. They're not into all of this crazy nonsense. This is a thing of white liberal yuppies. And I hate to say it, but it's true. You know, that thing we looked at with the girl with the hijab talking about Christmas. I guarantee whoever found her had to look far and wide to find someone who would say that, because every Muslim I know has a Christmas tree in their home. Now, you could find, though, 10 to 1 unmarried white women who would say the same exact thing that she was saying.
Right.
Denigrating your own society, your own cultures, etc. So this is the harbinger, for whatever reason, of all these social ills that we see coming out, and it's starting to manifest itself in actual violence. We've seen numerous attacks, attempted mass killings, one just a few weeks back by white women, and it's a brand new thing, but here we are.
100%. So Jeff MD, I won't lie, I did move around my tabs a little bit, so this one landed on you, and this is in reference to the Wall Street Journal's so-called bombshell report this week that Joe Biden has been incompetent since day one, and that all of the people in his cabinet and his workers have disguised it. So there you go, Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden's staff that's been running the country, which
this is in the duh category. Wall Street Journal is going to put another bombshell out next week that says water is wet. I mean,
right.
This is something everybody who has an IQ higher than room temperature.
I heard that Joy Reid is actually going to say that water is racist.
Well, again,
math is racist.
I said someone with an IQ above room temperature. That excludes her.
I love it. The room temperature stuff. So, Jeff Nicholas, I managed to dig up one more just for you. I love pronouns. Let me she them titties.
Oh my goodness. That's not.
Hey, I'm just reading what the man's shirt says. He's out in public enjoying his burger and fries, whatever.
Yeah.
All right. I'll give you a serious one here. This Chinese kid on Christmas getting the same toy he made 5 hours ago.
That's that's very interesting. I think what can you say about that? I mean, it is kind of funny.
It is.
Well, except that they're going to sell his kidney tomorrow.
I mean,
oh my God. All right. Moving on to the next one, just for you, Sal. If you want to know why nobody helped that woman who was lit on fire, you can thank me, because I'll prosecute.
Absolutely. And in fact, I was going to say the same exact thing when we were discussing it. Even the cops don't want to be involved, because that's where we are. They don't want to get involved and face the full ramifications of what scumbags like this guy and the other Soros prosecutors around the country will do to them. So they have the people who keep voting for this guy are cashing in now on what they voted for in their city. Let them live with that hell on the subway they use each day.
Yeah, well said. You get what you asked for. Be careful what you ask for. You might get it right. So, Jeff MD, wouldn't this be a glorious scene?
My Christmas wish. I can only hope that it comes true.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Trump is going to go hard after them, and I don't blame him. Something's got to be done.
They're responsible for more dead Americans than all the people Biden commuted their sentences on death row put together.
Oh, easily. Jeff Nicholas, you'll like this one. People who don't want a border wall: cartels, human traffickers, MS-13, drug smugglers, terrorists, and Democrats.
And rhinos.
And right.
Yeah.
Touche. Good catch.
Tyson Foods.
Yeah, Tyson Foods.
This girl who just got burned to death is one more person in a long list of blood that's on Mayorkas's hands. Obama, Biden, Kamala, the whole cabal. There's a person I follow on X, and I brought it up last night. I did last night's broadcast by myself, and this guy's tracked over 900 Americans that he knows of that were killed by illegal aliens since Biden got installed. It's unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable.
Chris, I have an interesting quip about that. So in Loudoun County, Virginia, one of the wealthiest counties in the country. So naturally, it has very low crime to begin with. But the Loudoun County Sheriff announced that in a press conference that they had 5 homicides this past year. 3 of the 5 were committed by illegals. So this idea that it's not an issue, that's 60% of your homicide rate. So all these sanctuary cities and counties, you're reaping what you sow. This idea that it's not an issue is absolutely ludicrous. That is 60% of the homicide rate in one of the most wealthy elite counties in the country. That's what they now have because of their voting habits.
Well, the good news is that we don't need more laws on the books. The laws are already on the books that if you are shielding illegals, you are in violation of federal law. And we haven't had the wherewithal to go after politicians. And Tom Homan is absolutely going to do it. And I can't wait to see the first one in handcuffs charged with doing that. I mean, it's long overdue and coming. So speaking of mental cases, check this one out, Jeff MD. Swedish politician who fought for equality and open borders is beheaded in the Congo.
One thing to say about that, karma is a bitch.
It's just, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. This one could not be more suitable for you, Jeff Nicholas. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a things aren't adding up and it's pretty obvious theorist.
Hey, man, it's not a conspiracy if it's true, right? And you know what? What did Mark Twain say? It says, the lie will circle the world twice before the truth ever puts its shoes on.
I have not heard that quote, but that is good.
So keep tuned, people, because a lot of the things you hear that you think are just outlandish and everything, you just wait and see. You just wait and see.
We've had an ongoing discussion, Jeff, on there seems to be a significant number of people in our society whose bullshit meters just don't work. And they believe whatever's put in front of them. They don't question it. They can't see through the bullshit like many of us can. And of course, they're the ones who are typically the most vocal and the first ones to throw out that you're racist or, some derogatory ad hominem attack. But let's move on. This is the last one. Everybody can comment on this if you want. This guy is choking to death. And the caption is, "She factory reset him." You guys want to get to the end of that one more time?
That's staged. That's staged.
I am not going to apologize for laughing at that. That shit's funny as hell. Oh my God. All right. So we're in the home stretch here. Homework for our audience. What can they do in light of the main topic of the night, which of course is global tensions, flashpoints, and Pete Hegseth being the right man for the job for Secretary of Defense. So first and foremost, before January 14th, write to your congressional rep and senators, letting them know that you want Pete Hegseth confirmed. And if they vote against them, that you'll work with another candidate to primary them. And if you go download the brief from patreon.com/survival dispatch, it's free. There's a link to govtrack.us /Congress/member/current, where you can find all the information on your Congress critters and how to reach out to them. Number 2, publicly support Pete Hegseth on your socials. Number 3, repost media that supports Pete Hegseth, including what we do at Survival Dispatch News. And number 4, speak out against the woke BS that's infiltrated our military, thanks to absolute garbage leadership. Jeff Nicholas, any other homework for our audience that they can do to help get Pete Hegseth over the hump and our next Secretary of Defense?
Well, you know what I'm going to say. We need to pray for our nation. We need to pray for him and his family. We need to pray for President Trump and his family. We need to pray that God brings revival to this nation and change the hearts of people, because unless hearts change, nobody else, you're not going to change, because you have to have a fundamental change of where you start from your morality position or your absolute, baseline, right?
Yeah.
So read your Bible, pray for our nation, pray for these people I just mentioned, and ask God to move not only in the life of this nation, but in our own lives and our own hearts as well, because we all need to seek the Lord.
I'm going to date myself here, and I know that you've got a few years on me, and so does Jeff MD. Sal's the youngster here tonight, but all the way through elementary, middle, and high school, I do not recall a single person or their parents complaining over the Lord's Prayer being said every single morning to start our school day. And when that changed was also the time that the original, should say the initial wave of political correctness came out. They both coincided in the mid 1980s. And we've seen nothing but a devolution of morals and things related to morals, beliefs, values in our society since then. Sal being the baby on the podcast here, I think I got at least 10 years on him. Your thoughts on what people can do to help get Pete Hegseth confirmed?
Yeah, be vocal about it. I don't know. I think coming out of this election, the conservative majority that's been silenced for so long is getting about done with that, and we need to be, and as far as these attacks on them, I know there was this investigation, et cetera, after what we saw done to Judge Kavanaugh. For me, and until there's any kind of evidence, I just see this tactic happening every single time. Somebody that the left doesn't like, they're going to come up with something like this, So it's inevitable that those attacks will keep happening. But he is the right guy for this job. This is what we need. And for Trump, the mandate we gave him, he needs the right people around him. And so far, it's a lot better than Trump 1.0. So these are the kind of people we need. Be vocal, contact your representatives, and let them know where you stand.
100%. Jeff MD. So I'll just throw another angle at it here. Would you rather go to war with Anthony Blinken and Lloyd Austin or Pete Hegseth if you had to be standing beside somebody in the trenches?
Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
We need someone who's not going to just nip around the edges. We need someone to take a sledgehammer to this place, because it's broken. And before you can fix it, you got to tear. We need to gut the Pentagon and then figure out which pieces we need to keep and which pieces we need to get rid of, and get rid of the pieces we don't.
So both Vivek and Elon spent a week or so in DC a few weeks ago. They went to Donald Trump and said, we can cut $2 trillion from our annual budget, which is our federal government's revenues are just north of $5 trillion a year. And then of course we have a deficit on top of that. But Donald Trump's assessment of that is that we can cut this $2 trillion and there's going to be no decrease in quality of service for American citizens.
It'll go up.
Right. Yeah. We're going to stop spending $1 million on why gay rats like to, do whatever sort of thing. Right. Like just absolute insanity. Okay. So that's it for the Pete Hegseth stuff. Other reminders is that if you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, sign up for free, you can get the briefs. But if you're a paying member at $9.99 a month, you get our essentials guide for free. And you also get access to our Signal group, which Sal and Jeff MD in particular would tell you there's just an insane amount of information being shared there. A lot of camaraderie. It's pretty badass. I wish I could keep up with it all, but I can't. And the other thing is, if you download our briefs now, you'll find a restricted section at the end. It's stuff that we can't put on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc., without getting strikes. And we've racked up a bunch of strikes on multiple different channels here on YouTube and other places. So, we could draw a hard line and say, screw it, we're going to put that stuff out there. All that does is get us canceled on YouTube and then stops us getting the message out even more. But if you want the complete unfettered version of Survival Dispatch News, that goes on X, Rumble, and Cloud Hub. Other than that, if you could please help support our sponsors that allow us to put the time and effort into creating the briefs, creating the episodes. CCW Safe, there's no better choice for self-defense coverage. Sawyer Products for water filters. Native Hydrate for their branched chain amino acids. And Flex Industries, craziest triggers on the market, bar none. They've got a new AK trigger coming, Sal, that's just as badass as the forced reset triggers for the AR platform that are pretty cool. Other than that, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and God bless America.
Is there a purpose?
Well,
is there a reason you think you were spared?
I mean, the only thing I can think is that God loves our country and he thinks we're going to bring our country back. He wants to bring it back.
And you believe in God?
I do.
You believe God's hand was in this that day?
I believe so, yeah. I do.
I lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help come from? From the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. If you ask, he'll give you some. We are ready for this battle. Together we will fight and pray.
For 7 years, you and I have been fighting side by side to rescue our nation from the evil and sinister forces who hate it and want to destroy it.
For generations we have trusted others to decide. America, we compromise. We let evil in to conquer us and welcome in their attention to divide. But things are coming into focus. We can't change yesterday. We are ready for this battle. Together we will fight and pray. God shed his grace on the American way. The spirit of America is what we're fighting for. All the miracles and history and heroes that have come before. The struggles and the stories and the victories and the fails. It's the love of country that unites us. Together we will fight and pray. The American way. So many weapons formed against us. None shall prosper, all will fail. But we're here to save America. And the gates of hell will not prevail. Cause it's American revival. And this battle's underway.
We will put America first and we will take back our country.
Cause forever we will fight and pray.
And together we will make America powerful again.
Together we fight for the American way.
We will make America wealthy again.
My country, 'tis of thee. America strong again. So strong. Fight and pray. We will make America proud again. Fight and pray. We will make America safe again. And pray of liberty, the American fight. We will make America free again. And we will make America great again.